Bruchim Aboim, Shalom Aleichem. It's actually really an exciting opportunity. We are beginning a new sefer. We're learning Vayikra now. And so in Synthesizing we are going to Chelek Yud Beis. It's a brand new krach, a brand new volume of Synthesizing. And the Mirza Hashem, over the next 9, 10, 11 weeks, we're going to be learning through the entire sefer, all of the siches, which is very exciting. As we journey together through the sefarim of Synthesizing. This sikha is on a Rashi and two Rashis in the beginning of Vayikra. It's actually a little bit intricate. There's details. We're going into a new realm, the realm of karbonis, and it obviously affects how we learn the Rashi and how we understand what Rashi is trying to say. With Hashem's help, we'll take it slowly but surely, and we will understand and learn the not just the Rashi and what Rashi is trying to say, but how the two Rashis are dependent on another, and how they bring together a new understanding and a better understanding of what Rashi is trying to tell us. Allah pasuk Vayikra Adam ki yakriv mikem karban laHashem. The pasuk says, a person from amongst you, a person who will bring close from amongst you a carbon to Hashem. So Rashi quotes the four words, Adam ki yakriv mikem, a person who will bring a carbon from amongst you, or will bring close from amongst you, and he translates, he explains, kisha yakriv, the karbanis nedava dibra inyan. The pasuk is talking about karbanis nedava, voluntary karbanis that are optional. The milashon hakasav ki yakriv shepirusha im yakriv, from the fact that it says ki yakriv, which Rashi understands to mean if he will bring, not that he will bring, but if he will bring, hainu shah, implying that the bringing of this carbon is dependent on the person's will, on the person's desire. Muchach shemeduber kan b'ha'inyin hu b'karbanos nedava. This compels us to say that the discussion here is about karbanos nedava, donations, contributions, things that are optional. Shahava osam teluya b'riseinu shel adam, which the bringing of these karbanos is dependent on the person's will. The labor karbanos sheyesh alav chayva la'aviyam, and not the karbanos that are obligatory upon him to bring. So in other words, we understand ki yakriv to mean if he will bring, if implying that it's optional, and therefore it must be karbanos nedava, it must be optional karbanos. Amnam lefisa tzarich lavin, but this raises a question. So on this Rashi by itself we have one question, and that is, why does Rashi quote the words Adam and Mikem in the beginning and the end of the Dibur HaMaschil? L'cha'era, he's coming to explain to us that because it says ki yakriv, implying that it's optional, we're talking about karbanos nedava. So in that case, why is it necessary to bring Adam Mikem? And as we've spoken many times, as the Rabbi has taught us, that every word in the Dibur HaMaschil is actually part of the Pirush of Rashi. Then Rashi quotes the word Adam, just the word Adam by itself. Why does it say the word Adam? Adam HaRishon, just like Adam HaRishon did not bring a carbon from stolen goods, because everything belonged to him, so they had nothing to steal. So too you should not bring a carbon from gezel, from stolen goods. So in order to teach us that it's osir, it's prohibited to bring a carbon from something that is stolen, the pasuk says Adam, hinting to us that we should not bring anything min gezel. Rashi, by saying why does it say Adam, is not saying that the word Adam is extra, that the word Adam is superfluous. We find in numerous places throughout Chumash where an Indian, a concept, a section begins with the words Adam or Ish. So it's normal, it's the style of the pasuk to begin with Adam or Ish. So that's clearly not what's bothering Rashi when he says Lama Nemar. The the shiny nidin didan sheba akosov nemar gamkein la'acharei zeh mikem ve'echad mehem umiyuter. So maybe I would say the reason why Rashi is asking lama nemar, even though Adam is normal, is because here it also says mikem. And you don't need both Adam and mikem. One of them is clearly extra. So the reason why Rashi said, maybe I would say that the reason why he says Adam, lama nemar, is because since it already says mikem in just a few words, then we don't need Adam. But if you're basing the reason that you're asking on Adam because of mikem, then ask why it says mikem. Don't ask why it says Adam. Only once it says mikem, you then have the question, one of these two is extra. Adam by itself is not extra till you say mikem. From the fact that Rashi says Adam lama nemar, it implies that the question is on the word Adam and not on the word mikem. So we're not going to answer the question and say that being that it says mikem, therefore Rashi says Adam lama nemar, because then he would have said mikem lama nemar. So in that case, why does Rashi say Adam lama nemar if this is Seder HaMikrais, if it's normal to start with an Adam? So therefore Rashi is not asking why is there any word here, Adam ish, general word as an introduction, because that's normal. But the question is, why does it say Adam and not ish? Therefore Rashi says that the word Adam teaches me not to steal, not to bring a carbon min hagezel. So second, Rashi says Adam lama nemar and explains to teach us what that we shouldn't take from min hagezel. The question is, what does Rashi mean by Adam lama nemar? And we explained that it means, why does it say Adam and not ish? But we have two questions on this understanding of this Rashi. Number one, why should it say ish and not Adam? Adam lama nemar, it should have said ish. So the Rebbe asks, why should it say ish and not Adam? The tzarech li is davke ish v'lei Adam. Since both Adam and ish are both normal in the pasuk, both regulars I should say, in the pasuk, so why should it say Adam ish and not Adam? Why is Rashi's Adam lama nemar a question? It should have said ish. Why should it say ish? Gam tzarech lahavin. Lama pirish Rashi tchila es hatevis Adam ki yakriv. V'achar kach tevas Adam halei b'kasavu Adam v'achar kach tzirufei lahamshich ki yakriv mikem. Very simple. Why does Rashi first explain Adam ki yakriv mikem and only afterwards explain Adam? Seemingly Adam comes first and then ki yakriv mikem comes afterwards. So should have first explained Adam to teach you not to take min hagezel, and then Adam ki yakriv mikem b'kabanas adav ha'kasam medaber. Now the reason why he asks this question here is because if there was another understanding of the pasuk of the Rashi, then it would have been based on that understanding. It could have made sense why Adam ki yakriv mikem has to come before Adam. But if the question is very simple, why does it say Adam and not ish? Then that question should have come right away. The first question, why does it say Adam, not ish? And then explain that being that it says ki yakriv, it means b'karbanas nadav. The fact that Rashi puts it in this order is not understood to us. So far we have three questions. Question number one is, why does Rashi quote the words Adam and Mikem in the Dibur HaMaschil? Question number two is, what's the Hava minute to say ish? The Rashi says Adam lama nemar. Question number three is, why does Rashi explain Adam ki yakriv Mikem before he explains Adam? V'hini yesh mefarshim. On the last two questions, why should it say ish? And why does Rashi explain Adam ki yakriv mikem before he explains Adam? There are certain mefarshim that want to say shekush yechada mituretzes bechaverta, that these two questions, one is answering the other. And he explains very beautifully. Before we conclude that the pasuk is talking about kabanas adava, ho ya'ev sheleimar shemaidi kan bekabanas cheva. If you didn't tell me that bekabanas adava akasum medaber, then there wouldn't have been a question of why did it say Adam, because I would have said that we're talking about Karbanos Chayva. And it says Adam to exclude Goyim. Chazal tell us Adam, Atem Kruyim Adam, V'lei Umas Eilim Kruyim Adam. That Adam means a Yid and not a non-Yid, and not the nations of the world. And therefore the title would be Adam, a Yid, Ki Yakriv, if you will bring Karbanos Chayva. But once Rashi taught us, in the first Rashi, that Adam Ki Yakriv Mikem, it's talking about Karbanos Nedava. Which also a goy is allowed to bring a carbon nedava. So now, if the type of ki yakriv is a karbanos nedava, why does it say Adam to exclude a guy? Should have said ish, which does not include a guy. So the answer to these two questions is answered by connecting the two questions. Once it says Adam, we said why is Adam ki yakriv mikem first? Because only after he says Adam ki yakriv mikem, that is talking about karbanos nedava, does it then raise a question, why does it say Adam and not Ish, which Ish includes Goyim as well, and therefore it should say Ish, because also Goyim can be karbanos nedava. And therefore Rashi has to say that it says it wants to exclude Geza. But this explains to us why Rashi is saying Adam Lama Nemar, and explains to us why Ki Yakriv comes before Adam. But this is not a sufficient answer. According to Rashi, in his Pirush Alatera, which means in Psutei Shel Mikra, this answer does not work. For three reasons. Ki Aleph, according to Psutei Shel Mikra, Mele in halacha we know Atam Kriyim Adam. But in Psutei Shel Mikra, what is the implication? Where is the implication that only a Yid is called Adam? Ve'adarabba. Matzinu bekama mekemis bekasov. V'gam lifnei parshas Vayikra. Adam v'keilu gamakom. We find in numerous places in Torah where he references the concordancia, where he'll bring various sources where it says the word Adam, and it means also not a Yid. Ubifrat shala posik Adam ki yamus ba'el v'geimar. There's a posik in Parashas Chukas which it says Adam ki yamus ba'el, in Adam which will pass away in an oil in a tent. So all of those should azalatim kriyim Adam v'chulu, which there is the origin of where the Chazal darshan that Atam Kriyim Adam, that this only refers to a Adam, to a Yid. Lehevi Rashi drashazu. Over there in Chukas, Rashi doesn't bring this drasha of Chazal. Umuchach sheladas Rashi believe Psutei Shel Mikra ein v'mashmuus shel Adam l'maytis ha'akum. That Rashi holds that even though Chazal teach it in Gemara, nevertheless al pi Psutei Shel Mikra, according to the basic understanding of the Psukim, there is nothing compelling to tell us that Atam Kriyim Adam, that Adam means only a Yid. So therefore our first question is, you were telling me before that only after you tell me that we're talking about a karbanos nedava, is there a question, why do you say Adam, which excludes a guy? How do I know that Adam excludes a guy? Beis, now we have another question. Where do we know in the simple understanding of our psukim? Especially if you're going to tell me that Adam excludes a guy, how do I know that a guy could be karbanos nedava? The whole question, according to this, is that if you tell me that it's karbanos nedava, it should have said Adam to include a guy, because a guy can also bring karbanos nedava. How do I know? How do I know that a guy could bring a karbanos nedava? V'adrabba. Din zen nilmad mi ribuy miyuchad sheba beparsha shalachli parshaseinu. This din that a guy could bring a karban nedava is brought in a parsha that comes later, after our parsha. Ukapirish Rashi la'alam beparshas Emer, as Rashi brings in Parshas Emer, where it says umiyad benecha le'sakrivu v'goymer, that you should not bring in the halachas in Parshas Emer. It's talking about the different types of mumim, of blemishes that disqualify an animal from bringing a carbon. And then the pasuk says, you shouldn't bring it from the hands of a guy. So Rashi says in the second half of the Rashi, but you are allowed to be makabel, a tmima, an unblemished animal from a goy as a carbon. Lekach nemar lemaila ish ish, and that's why in the beginning of that section in Parashas Emor it says ish ish l'Rabbi sasan nachrim, that to include also goyim, also non-Jews, shenoidrim v'nedarim v'nedavis ki Yisrael, that are allowed to bring nedarim and nedavis, optional karbonos, just like a yid. So Rashi over there has a special limud, brings down the special limud to bring it to teach us that a guy could bring a carbon nedava. The fact that the Torah has to be marbe, it has to give you a special limud to teach you to include goyim in carbon nedava, implies that without this special limud I wouldn't have known it by myself. And since this is the fact that I don't know at this point from the Pashtus Aksuvim that a goy cannot bring a carbon nedava, gam la'achar did daikinan shekabir carbon nedava dibra inyin, even after I specify that we're talking about carbon nedava, ein lahakshis a pasuk didan odam shemait akum lamanema. There's no question why does it say adam, because I don't know that a goy could bring carbon nedava. So one, I don't know. Because I don't know yet that a guy could bring a carbon nedava. So our two questions on this attempted answer is: number one, how do I know that a yid is called Adam and not a guy? And number two, how do I know that a guy brings a carbon nedava? And question three, if this is the question, why does it say Adam that excludes a goy? If a goy could bring a carbon, the question should not have been phrased, why does it say Adam? Question should have been phrased, how does it say Adam? If Adam excludes, before question Aleph and Beis, question Gimel is saying like this: you're telling me that it says once it tells me that we're talking about karbanos nedava, and a carbon nedava could be brought by a goy also, and therefore Rashi is saying, why does it say Adam which excludes a goy? So the question isn't why, the question is how. It's inconsistent with the halacha. If a goy could bring a carbon nedava, then it should have said ish, not Adam. Should have said eich, not lama. So let's review these three questions. We wanted to explain that the Rashi structure is as follows. First, he teaches us that a carbon nedava kaslam medaber, because it says ki yakriv. Based on that, we have the question: why does it say Adam? Since Adam excludes a goy, and karbanos nedava should have included the goy. And this we had three questions. Number one, how do I know that Adam includes a goy? But Adam excludes a guy. Number two, how do I know at this point that a guy could bring a carbon nedava? And if I do know this, then the question is not why does it say Adam? The question is how does it say Adam if it's not true that only an Adam, a Yid, could bring a carbon nedava? Now we're not done with the questions yet. These three questions were on this attempted answer of the Yesh Mefarshim on the top of page 3. But if we go back to the original Rashi, we're going to ask two more questions on the original Rashis. Gam tzorich lavin aleph me'achar shetevas mikem meyuteres lekuli alma kenal aval Rashi liyasher zeh bepirushay. Why does Rashi not explain the word mikem? Since mikem is unnecessary, why does Rashi? Let's do this one more time. Sorry. Rashi should have explained why it says mikem. Mikem seems to be an extra word here. Why does Rashi not explain the word mikem? And just by the way, I wanted to point out, why do I say that it's going back to the original Rashi? Because the numbers changed. We went Aleph, Beis, Gimel, we went back to Aleph. Why do we go back to Aleph? Because this question is not directly on the Yesh Mefarshim. This question is back on the original Rashi. And Beis, our second question on the original Rashi, is a very interesting question, and it's not so complicated anymore. It's a very simple or basic question. The market of Rashi, the answer of Rashi that Adam comes to teach me to not bring a carbon in a gezel is coming from two places, Medrash Rabbah and Medrash Tanchuma. There are inconsistencies between the two. Umehem, amongst these consistencies is as follows. Mitanchume haloshan shaloya yagezel me'achedim shahu hoya yichidi ba'olam. Tanchume says that Adam HaRishon did not steal from anyone because he was the only person in the world. Umedis Rabba shahoya hakel birishusay. That everything was in his possession, everything was owned by Adam, and therefore he did not bring anything from stolen goods. So the Tanchuma says everything, that he was the only person in the world. Rashi's Medrash Rabbah says everything belonged to him. So from the fact that Rashi says the words everything was his, it's the most consistent with the Medrash Rabbah, which says Sha'akoylaya b'shusay. So Rashi seems to be following the Medrash Rabbah and not the Tanchuma. So we have to understand what's the difference between these. What is the difference in the significance and the meaning, whether he was the only person in the world or he owned everything? And why does Rashi choose the Medrash Rabbah? So, just to summarize very quickly, our first question is, why does Rashi say the words Adam and Mikem in the Dibur HaMaskil? Question number 2 is, what does Rashi mean by Adam Lama Nemar? If you're going to want to tell me that he's trying to say that since I said Adam ki yakriv, that only karbanos nedava akasus medaber, so therefore he's asking why does it say Adam, which excludes goyim? I'll say, number 1, how do I know that Adam excludes goyim? Number 2, how do I know that goyim could bring a carbon nedava? And number 3, why does it say lama nemar not eich nemar? And then I have the question, why does Rashi not explain the word mikem? And question number 5 is, why does Rashi follow the Medrash Rabbah? And what is the difference in the nuances between Medrash Rabbah and Medrash Tanchuma? And now we're going to learn the Rashi. We're going to understand the Rashi, and from here we're going to go slowly and surely through understanding every aspect of this Rashi. Simply speaking, since this parsha is the intro into all of the dinim of karbanis, from Vayikra, it's called in English Leviticus, from the Lashon of Levim. In other words, this whole parsha, this whole chumash is going to speak, but it's called also Teras Koyanim. It's going to teach us about what the Koyanim do and the Koyanim are doing, especially about the karbanos and the various different kinds. Mistaber loymar, it makes sense to say shemishtoi bekarbanos chayva shehem asuga ikri v'amuchach bekarbanos, that it would start off with talking about karbanos chayva, the obligatory karbanos. They are the primary and most important part of karbanos. V'lei bekarbanos nedava. I would think that if you're going to start, first you're going to start with what's necessary, and then you'll start with what's optional. As much as possible, we want to squeeze in, we want to try to figure out a way to make sense in the psukim, that we're talking about the regular karbanos chayva, the obligatory karbanos. Elohim came, unless we're going to come up with an absolutely compelling proof that we're talking about karbanos nedava, then I have no choice, then I'll take karbanos nedava. But as long as I'm able to, I want to approach this, that we're going to talk about the more important aspect of karbanos, namely karbanos chayva. So what is Rashi's hechrich? What is Rashi's compelling proof that we're talking about karbanos nedava from the words Adam ki yakriv mikem? If you remember, our first question is, why does Rashi quote the words Adam and mikem in the Dibur HaMaskil? Because these are the words that are going to tell us why Rashi says karbanos nedava dibrahinim. From the words ki yakriv alone, we don't have a sufficient compelling proof. And but from the words Adam and Mikem together with Ki Yakriv, this is going to tell me that it must be talking about karbanos nedava. Why? And this is why we need the words Adam and Mikem. In question Aleph on page 3, we explain that Adam al pi pshuto shel mikra does not include goyim. It does not exclude goyim. In other words, a kid learns the word, Ben Chumash Lemikra learns the word Adam, he thinks it means everyone. As a matter of fact, our place is in Chumash, like we mentioned, where it says Adam and it means Yidden and Goyim. So based on this, according to the Svara, that we want to say that Bekarbonis Chayva Diber HaKasav, we're trying to say that. Tzarich Lefarish, Bekarbonis Chayva Diber HaInyan. So therefore I would say that we're talking about Karbonos Chayva. Masha nemar ki yakriv, im yakriv. The fact that it says in the pasuk ki yakriv, which sounds optional, is not because we're talking about optional karbonos tadava, but umipnei shegam nochrim nichulu parshas adam makriv karbonos. Because in this entire concept of karbonos, Goyim will be included at some point. And for them it's not obligatory, it's totally optional. And therefore it says ki yakriv, it sounds optional to include also the Goyim. In other words, if I was, before Rashi comes to me, I would look at the pasuk, I would say like this: Adam ki yakriv, Adam means everyone. Means also Goyim. What are we talking about? Karbonos Chayva. Why does it say ki yakriv? Because since there are certain karbonos, which is karbonos tadava, that a Goy could bring, and this is a general intro into everything, so therefore it says ki yakriv lashon rishus to include Goyim. But what are we talking about in this pasuk, in this inyan? Karbonos Chayva. That's how I would learn this Rashi from if it just said Adam ki yakriv. That's how I would learn this pasuk. The pshat of this pasuk if it just says Adam ki yakriv. And this is why Rashi includes the word mikem, lahadgish, to emphasize. You can say that we're talking about also karbonos of Goyim. Because the word mikem, from amongst you, means the Yidin, the Leibin Anachrim, and not from Goyim. So if Goyim are excluded from this pasuk, then why did it say ki yakriv lashon rishus? V'im kein mashakos of ki yakriv machriach leimar shebekarbonos nedava dibra inyan. And therefore, the only way to explain ki yakriv is that it's talking about karbonos nedava. So let me make sure we got that. I would have said that Adam means everyone. The pasuk is talking about karbonos chayva, and ki yakriv lashon rishus is to include Goyim into the whole idea of karbonos, which there are certain things that they could bring with optionally. But as soon as I say mikem, as soon as I say mikem from amongst you, which means only Yidden, then I can't say that the reason it says ki yakriv is because of the fact that it includes Goyim, because we're not including Goyim. So therefore I have no choice but to say that ki yakriv means karbonos nedava. That's the only reason why I would say lashon ki yakriv. Alright. So that's why Rashi says Adam ki yakriv mikem, from the word Adam and the word mikem together with ki yakriv, we know that karbonos nedava dibra inyan is the only way to explain the ki yakriv based on the fact that it also says mikem. In the next paragraph, we're going to try to bring a different explanation as to why you would say ki yakriv and still try to exclude, even though we have to exclude the Goyim because of mikem, it could still be talking about karbonos chayva. And what he's going to suggest is that it's trying to include a case of a katan, a minor that becomes a gadol, and when he was a katan he did an aveda. So the Maaseh Hachet obligates him to bring a carbon, but because of his age, when he becomes older, it's up to him whether he wants to bring a carbon. And that's why it says ki yakriv, even though it's bekarbonos chayva, because since he became a gadol in the middle, to bring it is still optional. So in other words, if you remember, we're trying very hard to say that it's bekarbonos chayva dibra kasav. So we wanted to say that the reason why it says Adam ki yakriv is Adam ki yakriv is because we're including Goyim in it. He says no, you can't do that because it says mikem. She says, how about if I say it's only Yidden, but the reason why it says Ki Yakriv Lashon optional is to include a case where there's a carbon chayva that becomes optional because of the age. Maybe that's the pshat. And then we could still say that B'kavanus chayva dibur hakasef. Let's learn it inside. Let's see. Still room to say that this is not absolutely it's not a final way of saying this. Even if you're talking about karbanos that are coming mikem, meaning from Yidden, we could still difficultly, if that's a word, explain mitama now from the earlier mentioned reason that karbanos chayva are the main thing of karbanos. So we could still try to say in a difficult, even though it's difficult. Shever karbanos chayva dibur hakasef that we're talking about the karbanos chayva, but in that case, why would it say ki yakriv, which was lost in the shus? Eladino kat ki yakriv. Mipnei shakos of mighty. The pasuk is talking about gam bekarbanos chayva. Even a certain type of carbon, which inherently is a carbon chayva, is obligatory. But it's the kind that even though it's in the general category of chayva, of obligatory, it's a scenario where he's not obligated to bring it, it's up to him. What kind of scenario? The Maisa Aveda obligates a carbon, meaning this Aveda that he did would make him have to bring a carbon, but the sinner cannot be forced to bring the carbon, because it's talking about someone who did the Aveda as a katan, as a minor, before bar or bas mitzvah. The cotton, and a cotton, even if he did a hariga, even if he murdered someone, you can't punish him. So let's try to kvetch ein. Let's try to push to, although it's difficult, let's try to explain. The pasuk is teaching us once he will become a gadol, a over bar mitzvah, and will become a choyev b'mitzvahs. Including karbanos. If he wants, he can bring this carbon, and it will be accepted and forgiven for what he did. And this is why it says ki yakriv lashon rishus, because since when he becomes a gadol, it's up to him when he wants to bring it. So maybe I could say that Adam ki yakriv is talking about karbanos chayva, and only karbanos of a yid. Why does it say ki yakriv lashon rishus? Because it's talking about a katan shehigdil, and a katan shehigdil, it's up to totally b'ritzena if he wants to bring the carbon or not. And then I could still get away by saying karbanos chayva, and I still have a tais for ki yakriv. It's not going to work. That pshat is not going to work. But according to this, it comes out that when it says ki yakriv, the permissibility of it, the optional aspect of it, is because of an age difference. The age of when he changes his age, and therefore he changes his level of obligation between when he committed the sin and the time that he brings the carbon. Then the pasuk should have emphasized the age aspect of it. How would he do that? How would the pasuk tell us that the person's age changed and now he becomes mechuyev? How would he do that? By saying ish, because a ish refers to a gadol shayach lekarbanos ki'im yakriv. That if this ish, if he will bring a carbon, the nirtzaloi al asay v'chulu she'avar lifnei zeh ish ki yakriv. It says that ish, that when he becomes a gadol and ish and he brings the carbon, he will be forgiven for the sins that he committed earlier on. And since it says Adam ki yakriv, where the pasuk is not emphasizing at all the age difference and the age change, because Adam includes both adults and children. Generally speaking, when it says Adam, we understand that Adam is speaking only to Gedolim. But over here where you wanted to emphasize that an age is changing, it should have said Ish. And since it says Adam, therefore we must come to the conclusion that we're not talking about someone who changed his age. So therefore we go back to our original question. In that case, why does it say Ki Yakriv if it's not talking about a Katan Shehigdil? And therefore we have no choice. We are compelled, we are forced to conclude that we're talking about Kabbanis the Dava because it says Ki Yakriv Lashon Neshus, and there's no other way to explain it. And therefore Rashi includes the word Adam to explain to us that it's part of the compelling proof that we're talking about Kabbanis the Dava. From Mikem we know that we're talking about Yidden, and therefore it can't be that we're saying Adam to include Goyim. And from Adam, it means we're including everyone, not just a case of Katan Shehigdil, and therefore it can't be saying Ki Yakriv because it's a Katan Shehigdil, and therefore we have no choice but to say, why does it say Ki Yakriv Lashon Reshus? Because B'Karbonis Nedava Diber Ha'inyan. But now we're going to go. So that's the first Rashi. The first Rashi, Adam ki yakriv mikem, yakriv b'kavanas nedava dibra inyan. We now understand the dibra maskil, why he says Adam, why he says mikem, and what ki yakriv means, and how he comes to the conclusion that ki yakriv is loshin b'kavanas nedava dibra inyan. But now we go to the next Rashi. And the next Rashi says, Adam Loma Nemer, why does it say Adam? And now we're going to explain what Rashi is asking. So now we know that in order to know that it's B'Karbonis and David Dibra Inyan, it has to say Mikem. Because like we said before, if it didn't say Mikem, I would think that Ki Yakriv is referring to the Goyim. As we mentioned before, the question is, why does it say Adam? Now I know we just explained that Adam tells us that we're not talking about a Katan Shehigdil, but he's going to explain over here that we still don't need the word Adam. Aleph, number one, by not saying the word Ish, we already know that we're not talking about a Katan Shehigdil, because he's not focusing on the age aspect. He could have said nothing, not Ish, not Adam. By not saying Ish, I would know that we're not talking about a Katan Shehigdil, and now I don't need Adam. I know I don't need Adam. Beis. You can't answer that it's normal to intro with the word Adam or Ish. Adam and Mikem. In our case where it says Adam and Mikem, the Mikem is necessary to teach us that we're talking only about Yidden. We said earlier in the Sikha that even though it's Derech HaMikra is to say Adam or Ish, that's only if there's no Mikem. But if there's a Mikem, then we don't need the Adam or the Ish. So once we exclude Ish to tell me that it's not talking about an age situation, so we skip the word, so we don't say the word Ish. After that, I don't need the word Adam. I don't need it as an intro because I have Mikem, and I don't need it to tell me, and I don't need it to tell me that we're not talking about an age problem, an age change, because as soon as it doesn't say Ish, I already know that. And therefore Rashi comes up with a question, Adam Lama Nemer. Why say Adam? Ois Gimel. Rashi. So Rashi answers, why does it say Adam? Ma Adam HaRishon leikriv min hagezel shakol lo yeshalei af atam letakriv min hagezel. Just like Adam HaRishon was not makir from the gezel, because everything was his, so too you should not bring a carbon from Gezel. And this is the prohibition against using a stolen animal to bring a carbon. Rashi is specific, and Rashi does not bring down the words that Adam HaRishon was the only person in the world. And now we're going to explain that. We're going to explain the difference between the Medrash and the Tanchuma, the Medrash Rabbah and Tanchuma, and why Rashi goes with the Medrash. First, we have to understand what's the difference. What is the difference between the two Lashonos? Ha'hefresh ben halashon shebetanchuma, shelo yagezel me'acherim shelo yichidi ba'elam. The difference between the lashon and Tanchuma, that he would not steal from others because he was the only person in the world. La lashon shenakat Rashi lehikri min hagezel shakai la'yeshaloi, to the lashon that Rashi uses, that he didn't steal from and he didn't bring a carbon from the gezel because everything was his. The Fiyah lashon, according to the first lashon of the Tanchuma, hatam shelo yagezel me'acherim, the reason he wasn't stealing from anybody, he didn't have from whom to steal, because he was the only person around. According to the second lashon, which is the Medrash Rabbah, the lashon that Rashi uses, he didn't have what to steal, because everything was his. So either you're saying he didn't have from whom to steal, or you're saying he didn't have what to steal. Those would be the two approaches. Now, I'll give you a tiny little intro into what he's about to say. If we would know that Adam HaRishon brought a carbon, then the reference to what was taking place at that time, either he was the only person or he owned everything, is relevant only to the time that he brought a carbon. Because he went and he bought a carbon and he didn't steal it, so therefore we too can't steal it. But if we're not going to find any source that Adam HaRishon brought a carbon, so we're not learning from Adam's actual bringing of a carbon, we're learning from the fact that if he would have brought a carbon, it wouldn't have been stolen, then this truth about him has to be true for the duration of his life. Again, if he actually brought a carbon, then we're learning from his actual carbon. Then as long as he didn't steal that carbon, we could learn from that. But if he didn't bring a carbon, and we're only learning from the fact that if he would have brought a carbon, it would have not been stolen, then it's hypothetical. Then the hypothetical has to remain true for his whole life. Because if the first half of his life, it wouldn't have been stolen, but in the second half of his life it would have been stolen, then we don't know that you can't bring a carbon, I guess. And this is what the Rabbi is going to say here in the Sikha. That since we don't know that Adam HaRishon brought a carbon, we need whatever we're going to say about him to be true for the duration of his entire life. And to say that he was the only person in the world is not true. Because after a while, Chava is created, and then Cain and Hevel, and then they have children, and Chase has children, and so on and so forth. But to say that he owned everything, we're going to say soon in the Sikha, that could be true for the entire duration of Adam HaRishon's life. And that's why Rashi goes with this way, because with this lashon, because al pi psutei shel mikra, we do not have a compelling proof that Adam brought a carbon. Let's try that inside. We're in the last paragraph of the second column on page 6. We do not find in the Torah anywhere according to Pshat Adam HaRishon carbon. The Adam HaRishon actually brought a carbon. Rashi is trying to say not that Adam HaRishon actually brought a carbon that was not stolen. He did not have the ability, the possibility to bring min hagezel. If he said therefore Rashi, it makes it more geschmack. The words that Rashi chooses, he doesn't say Adam brought something that was not stolen. He says he didn't bring anything that was stolen, because he didn't bring anything at all. If you're going to say like the Medrash Tanchuma, that he didn't bring from Gezel because he was the only person in the world, he didn't have from whom to steal. Yes, so we would ask a question, he was only the only person in the world for a very small amount of time. Because on the very same day that Adam was created, Chava was created. And on this very day, Cain and Hevel were born, and then Banim were Banes, and then their children, sons and daughters. So it's clearly obvious. So obviously it's clear that during most of Adam HaRishon's life there were many people that he was able to steal from. And it's difficult to say, al pi pshat at least, that when he says Rashi's Adam, he means that small tiny window of time that Adam was the only person in the world. He says Adam didn't bring min hagezel. Why? So if you're going to say that it's because he was the only person alive, then it's not true, because most of his lifetime there were other people that were alive as well. V'im kain, lepirish Rashi she'akavana hi shelo efshar la'akriv min hagezel. The Rashi is trying to say not that he actually brought something that was not stolen, but he didn't have the possibility to bring something that was stolen. You can't bring a proof from the fact that he was Yechidi Ba'olam, because he wasn't Yechidi Ba'olam for very long. In that case, how does the Tanchuma teach it? So here we have in the brackets, we still have to get back to that with Rashi's way, but let's digress for a moment. How would the Tanchuma learn it? The Dasa Tanchuma efshar leimar shesvira leish Adam HaRishon hikriv carbon b'peil. According to the Tanchuma, you could say that he holds that Adam actually brought a carbon, and at the time of the carbon, he was still Yachid Ba'olam. And therefore, you could learn from there that just like Adam HaRishon brought a carbon, Shalom min hagezel, so too we should bring Shalom min hagezel. But Rashi doesn't hold that because it's not moving that way. So therefore, Rashi can't say that he actually brought the carbon. So therefore, we go back to where we're holding that Rashi is learning from the fact that he could bring a carbon. And if at a certain point he became, there were other people alive in the world, then he could have taken it from someone else. So therefore, Rashi can't say Shahu haya Yechidi Ba'olam. And even if you would try to say that he did bring a carbon, even al pi pshat, which may be somewhat derived from the fact that Cain and Hevel brought karbanis. Where did they come up with this idea of bringing karbanis from? Maybe from their father. They saw their father bring a carbon, and therefore they brought a carbon. They couldn't have seen it because we're about to say that he was a Yechidi. But maybe you would say that they learned from that idea from their father. It still makes more sense to say if you're going to tell me that no, of course Adam brought a carbon, it's obvious he brought a carbon, when do you think he would have brought a carbon? He brought it as a kapara, as an atonement for the Chet Tzadas. Who brought a carbon after the Mabel, so there was a main event, a big huge event in his life, and he brought a carbon afterwards. In the 40, he brings that Noach brought the carbon as a thank you for saving his life from the Mabel, and maybe Adam HaRishon was thanking Hashem that he didn't punish him too harshly on the Chet Tzadas. But it's a nice time to say that the carbon was brought. But that's at that point he's not anymore Yechidi. Ubifrat, and if you're gonna insist that he brought it beforehand, he brings it in the brackets that he Pasha didn't have time. It's like probably impossible. Especially since before Chava was born, in this very short amount of time, many things happened. Number one, Adam had to name every single animal and bird and the behema and chaya. And then it also says in Rashi, which I believe the simple meaning of this is that Adam mated each and every behema v'chaya, even though in Sifsei Chachamim he says ba over here means ba b'sichlei, that Adam was exploring the natures of the animals to know what to name them. Either way, it's still very time consuming. And then and then all of a sudden he was put to sleep and Chava was created. So the Adam did not have a lot of time to start sitting and being makriv korbanos. So therefore, according to Rashi, either we have no idea that he brought a carbon, or if you're going to insist that he brought a carbon, clearly he was not Yichidi B'olam. Therefore Rashi says that the reason he couldn't bring a carbon, he couldn't bring in a gezel because everything was his. As soon as he was born, as soon as he was created, everything became his. Even after Chava was created, and even after sons and daughters were born to him, his kinyan was never uprooted, was never taken away. Everything in the world is his. And therefore it's very understood, it's very smooth that for the rest of their life, his entire life, he owned everything that he acquired immediately upon his creation. And therefore he couldn't have been makriv min hagezel because everything belonged to him. Very simple, basic question. We just explained that Adam HaRishon, most of his life, there were other people alive as well. There was Chava, there was Cain, there was Hevel, Banim Abanis, there was Shason, there was other Deiris. So they also had things. Shayu birshusam v'kinyanam, that was in their possession and their ownership. Gam b'chai Adam HaRishon, even in the lifetime of Adam HaRishon. V'yamar HaKasa, for example, the pasuk says, Shekain v'Hevel oyolem tzayin v'chulu. The Cain v'Hevel owned tzayin and owned other things. Cain was bringing from the ground. He was bringing the gifts to Hashem. He owned the real estate, and Hevel owned the cattle. This is not a question because these Cain and Hevel, they were like children that are dependent on their father's support. So al pi halacha, and this is a discussion in various different places in Gemara, in halacha, the different ownerships that a father has on his children's things if they are still relying on him for their sustenance. So Cain and Hevel were still Adam's children. We're still dependent on Adam HaRishon for his support, and therefore even if they own things, it still in a sense belongs to Adam. And this might be, originally we said that Rashi doesn't say exactly the Medrash. The Medrash says and Rashi says Rashi is trying to say this is a diuk in Rashi that he says everything was his. Different than the Medrash, which is the makir of Rashi. Was his, but it was in the possession of someone else. B'rishusay means it was in his possession. Rashi is saying it was his, either while it was in the possession of Cain and Hevel or his children. And even if you're going to say that Adam HaRishon bequeathed it to them, gave it to them in a full-fledged matana, that he was removing it from his rishus. Since he gave it away from his own choice and his own free will, and these are his children and his grandchildren, certainly he wouldn't have stolen from them. So even if he would have brought a carbon after he gave it away to his children, it wouldn't have been stolen, because why would he steal from his children? I had a shtickle question to myself that he says everything was his. He doesn't say because he was a nice Zaidi that wasn't going to steal from his grandkids. So the lashon was not so smooth, and I came up with a kvetch that hakoil hoya shaloi doesn't just mean everything, all the items. Hakoil hoya shaloi, all the people were his. All the people were part of his family, and therefore he wouldn't have stolen from them, because the belongings, everything belonged to him, and those things that didn't belong to him and belonged to other people, those people were also his. and therefore he wouldn't have stolen from them. It's certainly not the pashut pshat in the Sikha, maybe not a right pshat at all, but it was a shtickle kvetch in the word Shakol HaYeshaloi to understand, if the reason is that he wouldn't have taken it to them because he was their Zaidi, he was their Elter Zaidi, whatever it is, because they were family, then that's not really what Shakol HaYeshaloi means, unless you taich ein a little bit la chavivusa de milsa. Okay, so with this we've answered, we've explained now the second Rashi. The first Rashi we already dealt with Adam ki Yaakov mikem. Second was why to say Adam. The all we need is that to say ki Yaakov mikem. We don't need Adam, and we explained that Adam is to teach us to not bring a carbon in our gezel. Rashi specifically quotes from the Medrash Rabbah, not from Tanchuma, because Rashi is trying to tell us that even though we do not know whether or not Adam HaRishon brought a carbon, nevertheless at any point in his life, had he brought a carbon, it would have not been min gezel, because everything was his when he was born, when he was created, everything became his, and even afterwards he retained ownership of everything, and whatever he gave away was either it was some of the people who had it was samach al shulchanai, or even if he gave it away entirely, it still is something that he wouldn't steal from it because it was his children or his grandchildren, etc. We have one last question to answer, and that question is going to be how did Adam HaRishon take ownership of everything? How did everything become his own? It's obvious. In order to acquire something, you have to make a kinyan. Very basic aspect in the halachas of ownership in Yiddishkeit, in Judaism, is that you have to make a kinyan. In order for it to be the ownership to become mine, there's something has to happen, even if it's a symbolic thing and it's not actually taking it home with you or paying for it. There has to be some sort of kinyan. V'deicha gadalu v'leimatzinu shasa Adam HaRishon b'chol davar sheba'ilam kinyan amoyo v'kol ze b'meshach 10 shah kala kedush nivra chavo. We don't find anywhere that Adam HaRishon went to everything in the world and made a kinyan in it, especially in the short amount of time that we just explained on the previous page before Chava was born. And it has to be before Chava was born, because once Chava is born, then it's not, maybe it's not his. If he didn't make a kinyan in it, then Chava can make a kinyan in it. So it has to be that it happened before Chava was born, and there was a very short amount of time, and nowhere do we see anywhere where it says that Adam HaRishon made a kinyan. And Rashi writes it with a pashtus, everything was his. And he suffers without any additional explanation. So it must be that it's so simple that Rashi doesn't have to explain it. It's obvious that Adam HaRishon owned everything. And the question is how? Where do you see a kinyan or any type of taking of ownership that Adam HaRishon did that should give him ownership to everything that exists in the world? There are those that want to bring a proof that everything belonged to Adam HaRishon even without a kinyan. That according to halacha, if there's something that exists that has no owner whatsoever, but there's only one person in the world for some reason that could make a kinyan in it, then that person doesn't need to make a kinyan. In other words, when you have something that 3 people want to take ownership of, then whoever makes the kinyan in it is the one who owns it. But if there's something that nobody owns, but only one person has the ability, has the possibility to make a kinyan in it, then the halacha is that he does not have to make a kinyan, because by definition it becomes his automatically, because nobody else could make a kinyan in it. So someone wants to say that the same thing would apply to Adam HaRishon, that since nobody else existed, so nobody else could make a kinyan in it, therefore automatically it would become Adam HaRishon's. And before we tell you why this is not a good explanation, in the brackets, the Rebbe is going to explain based on what would this halacha be applicable. The Yuvan says, this will be understood. B'im neimar shegeder hefkeru. What is the geder of hefker? Hefker means that something is ownerless, and therefore whoever makes a kinyan in it first becomes the owner. So the chira is, when you say something is hefker, doesn't mean that it's ownerless because nobody owns it, nobody has possession of it, or because everybody in the world has possession in it. And therefore, whoever makes the kinyan in it first will confirm his ownership of it to the exclusion of everybody else. Again, do I say that nobody owns it, and whoever picks it up first becomes the owner? Or do I say that everybody owns it, and whoever makes the kinyan in it then excludes everyone else from their pre-existing ownership in it, and he becomes the sole owner? ויובן זה, ואם נאמר שנגדר הפקר הוא לא שאיני שייך לשום אדם בעולם, כי אם ששייך לכל אחד ואחד בעולם. If you say that hefker means that it doesn't belong to, not that it doesn't belong to anybody, but that it belongs to everybody, based on that, if you say that hefker means that it belongs to every single person in the world, why do you have to make a kinyan on it? To exclude everybody else, to remove everybody else from claiming ownership on this. I make a kinyan in it, and then it becomes mine. But if nobody else could make a kinyan in it anyway, and it's a kinyan, then you don't need a kinyan because there's no reason to uproot anybody else's possible ownership because nobody else can make a kinyan in it. And the same thing would apply over here with Adam HaRishon, that since nobody else was able to make a kinyan in the world, automatically it becomes his, even though nobody made a kinyan, even though he didn't make a kinyan. Aval. In addition to the fact that even according to halacha, this still needs great looking into, and that it's not pashut at all, that this is what the halacha is. Even if you're going to say that this does work, al pi halacha, it's a big chiddush to say that a person does not have to make a kinyan in something that's hefker because nobody else can make a kinyan in it anyway. So at least Rashi should have explained it and said, because nobody else was there to make a kinyan in it. But since Rashi doesn't say anything, it must be something much simpler. It must be a much simpler form of the ownership of Adam HaRishon on everything in the world, which therefore Rashi doesn't have to explain it. And therefore we're going to explain that this is similar to a melech, similar to the ownership that a king takes by conquering another country or another medina, another country. So this will be understood by prefacing that which the Alter Rebbe writes in Shulchan Aruch. Melech afilu nachri shekavash eze medina, a king, even a non-Jewish king, that conquers another country, b'milchama, through war. Kaina Isa, he acquires it, im kol hanahares v'ha'arim sheba, with all of its rivers, with all of its cities. Shekal ha'aretz, Kula, the entire country, im hanaharis, v'hayorim, including the forests and the rivers, he b'rishus hamelech, is in the possession of the king, bein medinasai, bein medina shekeres b'milchama. Whether it's a country that is under his rulership, whether it's a country that he controls, that he conquers through war, but once he conquers it, everything inside the country is included in his ownership, and therefore he doesn't have to go make a kinyan on every single object or item in the country. Once he owns the country, he owns everything inside of it. If you think about it, it's not such a difficult concept to understand, even in modern society, where we own our own homes or we own things, we pay taxes. There's a certain level. There's martial law. There's I'm forgetting what it's called right now. Even where the government can take your property away. So even though it's not exactly the same thing, but even in the modern version of it, there's a certain sense of ownership that the state or the country has, that because they're the government. So it's understood. It's understood that a king conquers a country, everything becomes his. Move on. This we can apply to Adam HaRishon. Since Adam HaRishon was the only person in the world, and he was the ruler of everything, the whole world was conquered under his rule. The Nasa Shaloi, and it became his. And this is similar to a king that conquers a country, that everything goes under the rulership of the king and becomes his. Especially the animals, which is the topic of conversation of karbanos, were taken under his rule. As Rashi explains, there's a pasuk in a Perek Beis pasuk Yutes, Vayitzer or Vayotzer Hashem Elikim min ha'adama kol chayes hasada, which literally Vayitzer means he created. Rashi, in the second pshat in Rashi, says, Vayotzar miloshen yetzira zu ridui v'kibush. This Vayotzar that Hashem created, chayes hasoda, this comes from the word ridui v'kibush, control and rulership, like the lashon kisatzur el-ir, which kisatzur over there means when you'll conquer a city. You'll take control of a city. And Rashi explains that Adam HaRishon took control over all the animals. So certainly the animals were under Adam HaRishon's control, in addition to the fact that everything else became his, and therefore Adam was like a melech that owns everything. The Kinyan Kibush had a Kinyan Kibush is a concept that could be understood even though even a Ben Chamis Mikra could understand that when a king conquers something, he takes ownership of everything. Shapirish Rashi, and this is also understood from the fact that Rashi says, Shenemar on the pasuk al totzer etzmayav. This is in Parshas Chukas, I believe, where the Torah says, Ki cheshbon ir, the Torah is saying that the Yidden took over the city of Cheshbon and some of the other cities around. And the pasuk says, Ki cheshbon ir sichain, because Cheshbon belongs to Sichain. So Rashi says, what is the pasuk trying to say? So Rashi explains, Shenemar al totzeres moyav. It says, al totzeres moyav, you're not allowed to hurt moyav. You're not allowed to start up with moyav and take things from them. So how did the Yidden get Cheshbon if Cheshbon was a moyavi city? So therefore it says, Ki Cheshbon is Sichain, Shesichain lakcha mehem, that Sichain took Cheshbon from Moav, Val Yodei Tiar Ol Yisrael, and once it was in the ownership of Sichain, it became permissible for the Yidden to conquer it from Sichain. Because Sichain conquered this area, this country of Moav, it became his, and therefore became permissible to the Yidden to take it from Sichain. And since Rashi is not explaining the general concept that through conquering it becomes the person's, move on. It's understood that over there the chiddush is not that through conquering it becomes yours. That's obvious. The chiddush there was that it happened to Moav, that Sichain conquered it from Moav and therefore became Sichain's. But the general idea that if a king conquers something from another country, that it can become his own, that's obvious. And therefore it's understood how everything belongs to Adam HaRishon without Rashi having to explain it, because since Adam HaRishon was the king of the world, which means to say that everything in the world at the time was under his control, therefore it became his. Once it became his, it remained his for the duration of his life. And therefore, even had he come later on to bring a carbon from anything that existed, it would not have been min hagezel. And that's why the Torah here says, Adam, to teach me that the halacha that you're not allowed to bring a carbon, min hagezel.